Hey PC gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Morton, and
hey everyone, I'm Molly Taylor.
And Molly and I today are bringing on our staff writer Harvey Randall to talk about MMO combat, specifically skill bar, hotbar combat that is so prevalent in MMOs, because I am a blasphemer and I am tired of it, and Molly and Harvey are going to yell at me and tell me that I'm wrong. Do we talk about MMOs too much on this podcast? How dare you? No, how dare you ask that question? The answer, I refuse to answer it, actually.
Yeah, my mistake. Yeah, the answer is no. I think my favorite episodes are always the episodes where we get a third person on and it's just us against you.
Yeah,
it always seems to go
a few times
way.
Recently. Yes. You've been ganging up on me a lot recently. So Molly has chosen to bring in Harvey, another one of our MMO enjoyers, to talk about the style of combat that I am a bit weary of, and I want some new, different, weird things from MMOs. And these two back-ass words people are like, no, we're happy with the way things are. Don't change anything at all. But before we get into the argument, it's not an argument. It's a friendly, lively discussion. Before we talk about that, Molly, what did you do last week?
Yeah, so this is kind of like the last week and a half ish, I want to say. You know, that the nature of how we sometimes record these things means that we sometimes record
last
them.
Week is a fluid concept.
Yeah, right. Sometimes we have to record these things right before I go to do very exciting things, which was the case in last week's intro. So I could finally talk about it this week. I went to the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Festival in London.
Molly, would you call yourself a Final Fantasy XIV fan?
Is that a title? Maybe? I don't know. I've dabbled. You know, I have about like 4,000 hours of dabbling.
Molly is a huge Final Fantasy XIV fan, in case this is your first time listening to a podcast where we talk about MMOs.
Yeah, I'm a slut for Final Fantasy XIV. I love the game so much, and I was very kindly invited to go as press. So I went and spent my weekend there, and I haven't been playing the game as much this year because I value my time and my sanity and those are two things that Final Fantasy XIV often does not allow me to have. But it was so much fun. Seeing like Yoshi P in person was kind of wild for me. Seeing all these beautiful cosplayers and seeing other members of the team as well, like Soken and the artists, like the Keiko, who does a bunch of the piano music for the game. Like, it was just so nice being around the community, and now it's sort of like sparked that desire to go back and play again. So I am back in full swing playing the game. I have had like 8 friends who have all picked up the game as well. I don't know how it happened. It's like the snowball effect, right? Like, one person in your friend group starts playing it and then someone else comes along to join, and before you know it, every single one of my friends has bought the complete edition. They all have the complete edition. They've all been playing it, and it's been so much fun. A couple of people had played it previously but had not gotten very far. So it's been really nice. I have probably the most experience out of everybody, but it's also like I have like 8 individual friends who are all at individual parts of the story because they're going at it at the same pace.
Shepherding people through all of the same content over and over again. Oh, you're having the problem that I have all the time.
So like, it's like having 8 toddlers just constantly like asking the same questions over and over, and I love it. I love it because there's something so precious about being able to share something you love with people who've never done it before, and to see that experience like through their eyes, like stuff that I thought was super obvious or stuff that I hadn't really thought twice about at this point, like, because I'm like, oh, this is so easy, and then one of my friends does it and they're like, this is so cool, and I'm like, oh my god, like, this was cool, like at some point to me this was also cool. So like, it is like toddlers. It is like having 8 small children who are very incessant, but it has been so lovely. Like, at the risk of sounding kind of cringe, it has been so wonderful being able to share something that means so much to me with them, and it's been so fun. So that has been, the brain rot is back.
Yep,
It is
classic.
severe, but I'm okay with it for now.
That's so fun. You only get that
So
experience every once in a while, having a bunch of friends jump onto something that's already like your thing.
your thing, right? And I never get that. I never get that. So me being able to teach other people for a change instead of it being the other way around, it's really nice. I'm having so much fun. And
Great.
I know it will end, but I hope it doesn't. So that's been my week and a bit. A lot of Final Fantasy, a lot of returning to my former glory. How about you, Lauren? How is your week kind of looking?
So last week we talked a bit about like tracking games, right? And I let on that I've been keeping track of my cozy games for the year.
Yes.
Recently, as of this past month, trying to like think about the end of the year and like writing recommendations and things like that. And so I'm like slowly catching up on some of the stuff I didn't get to play throughout the year, or was like, that looks neat, and then like didn't make time for it. And I wound up like picking up several cozy city builders in a row, just to
Ooh.
sort of like sort from them. I like tried one called Outlanders. I finally tried Terra Nil, the one that's like about reclaiming a wasteland and like turning it into like a functioning biome and whatnot. And then I played a lot of Fabledom. Fabledom is the one that really got my
Ooh.
attention over the weekend, and I played a lot of. That one is very like um medieval-ish, like fairy tale inspiration. Like you've got like, you can befriend a big like ogre, or no, he's a cyclops, a big cyclops guy, and then like I got an event where there was suddenly a magic beanstalk that I had to put somewhere in my world. But yeah, it was fun. It's a nice cute little city builder. It's very the aesthetic is very cute. I love that you can zoom in pretty far and like watch your little people wander around. You don't get that in more like deep serious city builders, for sure. And I think this one definitely lands like cozy vibe for me, not just in the visuals but like the gameplay style, like the strategy as well, because there's not you don't progress through eras really. You unlock
Mhm.
like progressively better tech for like processing iron, or like doing like new buildings that process like food resources to like you get a bakery, and then you get this, that, and the other, instead of like a really complex tech tree, or like advancing technology through like an actual like era system. And you don't have the depth of like managing all of your little citizens, your little fablings, like super deep. They sort of have like a class, whether they're a peasant or a commoner, and then they have like where their home is versus where their job is, like that distance. And they can get sick, but they don't have like a lot of deep attributes. So I felt like it was the right amount of strategy to remain like cozy vibes for me personally. I didn't start to feel like too in the weeds strategy wise. And it was still very cute and enjoyable, and I could focus on like the visuals of my town also. Make sure that
Yeah. Important.
I construct it in a way that looks cute and put all the decorations in places I want them. So yeah, I started playing that on like Friday, and then wound up spending like a good chunk of the weekend on it. And dabbled in Return to Moria as well, the Lord of the Rings
Oh,
crafting
yes,
game, Return to
yes.
Moria. It's all right. It's not going to be like a standout of the crafting genre, which is disappointing because a Lord of the Rings crafting game should.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it should. It was all right. They're just a bunch of like fiddly little things. Like the crafting menus are not like, they're separated in a weird way. There's a building menu and a crafting menu, and but like the building menu is separated into like two pieces as well. There's just like some
No.
strange decisions.
No.
The combat is okay, and then like your bases sort of like get raided occasionally, which is neat. Love the concept, except that like every time I just watch goblins or wolves just like spawn in front of my camp, and then they walk in a
Ah.
straight line towards it, like sort of flipping into each other, like towards my base. I'm like, oh,
Uh-huh.
okay, got it. um and that the building system is just a little bit fiddly too. So it's just sort of like okay all around, which is slightly a bummer. I was hoping for like, heck yeah, dwarf building crafting sim, and it's good that I'm playing it with friends. I think that always makes it more enjoyable,
It
even if the game
helps.
itself is a little bit fiddly. So
It really helps.
yeah, that's what I got up to last week. We did a lot of stuff last week.
We did. That
Dang.
was a big catch up.
That was a big catch up. Holy cow. That was like probably like a week and a half, truthfully, of gaming that we caught up on. Well,
Yeah.
then, without further ado, let's go get Harvey and talk about MMO skill combat.
Yes.
Hey, Harvey, thank you for joining us to talk about MMOs and combat, which is a topic that's kind of been sitting on our back burner. Because I think it was like early on in our planning for the podcast, Molly, where we were like shuffling ideas for topics with a bunch of other people. And at some point, I put in that document, MMO hotbar combat sucks, fight me. And then you had left a comment on it in Google Docs. It was like, who wrote this? It wasn't me.
Absolutely unacceptable.
Unacceptable. So I am shocked that you picked this topic and you are allowing me to be wrong on the internet today and fight with you. I appreciate it. And you've brought Harvey in. Harvey, and you're not on my side, so I've been stacked against, haven't I?
I brought reinforcements. Every time
did.
It'd be a 2v1 against you.
here's the part of like the political medieval drama where I pull out a knife and stab Molly in the back a little bit, because I am a little on Lauren's side, a tiny bit. I'm a bit sensuous when it comes to this, but I've got opinions I can get into later.
Balance. We need balance. So what we're talking about is hotbar style combat for MMOs, which is really traditional, right? So many MMOs that we play and we're used to are MMORPGs. And the way that you experience combat is you unlock a bunch of skills for your character in whatever class that you play. You assign them to your little hotbar of like 1 through 0, depending on which game it is you're playing. Each of those skills has like a cooldown. It has like a cost. It has a bunch of like, whether it's AoE or a direct hit, and it has like different status effect stuff on it. And like you just go through a rotation of like skills like 1, 5, 2, 3. You pick your little rotation and that's how you do combat. In certain games, you're more mobile than others. Like I would say, Molly, you and I have played Guild Wars 2. Harvey, you've only sort of like done a little bit of Guild Wars 2 maybe. That one's
I've dabbled.
It's like, it's very mobile, it's very actiony, it's very fast paced, but still ultimately you're working off a hotbar of skills. And I don't even know if I think it's bad. I'm just so tired of it. I'm just so tired of having a hotbar of skills and pressing tab and then doing my little fiddly bits with like all my skills as I like slowly circle around enemies. Molly, tell me why it's good, and or Harvey, tell me why I'm wrong, please.
Do you know what I think it is? I think your problem with Guild Wars hotbar combat is y'all don't have enough skills. You do not have enough things occupying your brain at once. You say 1 to 0. I have 3 like 12 button hotbars.
I would drown, Molly. I would be so upset if I had that many hotbars. I would drown. What? I would die.
It's so good. I love it. I have like, because for people who have listened previously, you will know that I play like an ungodly amount of Final Fantasy XIV, which is my MMO of choice. It is why I love hotbar combat. And because I don't know, that was the thing when I played Guild Wars, was I was like, where are all my abilities? Where is the oh shit button that I press in certain circumstances? Where is the one button that I only have to use right at the beginning and then I never touch it again? You know, it's like, that was my problem with Guild Wars, and maybe that's why I don't enjoy the hotbariness so much. But I think what I really love about hotbar combat is like, it's kind of customizable. Like the abilities are always static, your rotation is always static. How you can sort of play that is so different across games, right? Like I don't know how you feel, Harvey. You had said to me actually before this podcast, Harvey, that you also took problem with how Guild Wars like hotbar-y stuff is.
I have bounced off of Guild Wars 2, I think 4 times over, and I play like a good smattering of MMOs, right? Like I have a concerning amount of hours in Final Fantasy XIV. I played WoW back in the day. I played a bit of Dragonflight as well. It's like an outlaw rogue, which is fun. But yeah, I had the same thing with Guild Wars 2, where you figure out your little rotation and you only have about 4 or 5 abilities, and then that becomes your leveling experience for however long you play it. And I just couldn't grok with it. I just couldn't get my brain around it. But very similar to Molly, I like having that sort of like almost like a keyboard of abilities, right? And figuring out your kind of like what your character or your class is like solo on that keyboard is, and then mastering that, and then kind of like wrestling with the rest of the mechanics in a game. But Guild Wars 2, I just couldn't. It's just too kind of limited. But I will like make the counterpoint as well. Final Fantasy 14, it takes a while to get to that point. Like levels, and I think this is true with a lot of MMOs. Levels 1 through 50 of the 90 in FF14 are criminally. The hotbar is criminally understaffed for those levels. It's a problem.
See, and that's what I liked about Guild Wars 2, coming off of other MMOs, because like I've done Elder Scrolls Online, I've done a little bit of Black Desert Online, which is also very actiony, but still ultimately comes down to like a skill hotbar as I remember it. Let's see, the Star Wars one, BioWare Austin's Star Wars one, whose name I'm forgetting, Knights of the Old Republic, but it's not the Old Republic.
Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Just the Old Republic, that's it. And like, what else? I don't remember. But anyway, compared to all of those other things, Guild Wars 2, I actually liked the pared downness of it. And then it was, I don't know, maybe it's just that I'm bad at holding all these things in my head and I just need to get better. But frankly, yeah, I like the interplay of like fewer actual skills or fewer actual buttons, but doing more intricate things with them. I guess I'm going to make a case for like action combat in a different sense as we get further in this conversation. But tell me why you guys love like customizing your skill bar and like what feels so nice about that. Is it because you like, does Final Fantasy 14 let you switch like loadouts or skill builds like easily? That's a thing I missed from Guild Wars 1, in fact. It was cool.
There aren't really builds in Final Fantasy 14 so much, but you can play all of the different jobs and classes on the same character. So you just hit a button and you swap out, and your hotbar like swaps out.
Okay, yeah. So you do like swap a loadout really easily of like different skill sets.
You can have like shared hotbars as well across classes. So you can just have like your battle hotbars swap out, and then your hotbar for like sprinting or like traveling and stuff like that. That can be contained to one that stays the same no matter which class you play. It's very nice. I really like it. I think for me, the thing that I love so much about, especially in Final Fantasy 14, about the hotbars is like it's kind of like tailoring something to fit you perfectly, right? It's like putting on like the perfect glove or like the perfect pair of shoes. Like you, like to an inch, you make that like your experience, right? If you want to play like 1 to 0 across the top of your keyboard, you can do that. Like if you want that level of discomfort, go for it. Like some people might find that comfortable, but like my hotbar setup is something that I have spent like hundreds, if not thousands of hours sort of making work for me. And it's just it's like finding the easiest way to output all of these things that I'm given, right? It's like the quickest way to do that and the most convenient way to do that. And that's what I really like about customizing it. And you know, you'll look at my hotbars and that they might be like so different from someone else's, right? I think mine are superior personally, but
it's always so amazing when your friend sends you their UI and you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
You've talked about this experience,
here?
Molly. Yeah, you get people's UIs and being shocked.
Yeah, legit. Like that is the first thing. If someone sends me a screenshot of their game, like their hotbars and their UI, is like the first thing I look at. Like in Final Fantasy, most classes have like a 1, 2, 3 rotation. So, you know, you will typically put those on like your first button, your second button, your third button, right? Because that's your basic rotation. And I have seen people that have like their 1, 2, 3, they're like performing keyboard fucking acrobatics to try and hit just their basic rotation. And I'm like, if that works for you, that works for you. Because it's muscle memory at the end of the day, right? But that is kind of what I like. I like being judgmental, but I like how it can be like the glove can fit everyone differently, right? Like there is no one superior way to organize your hotbar. And I think that level of being able to, it's such a small way to customize your experience, but personally I really enjoy that. I don't know if you feel the same way, Harvey, about your own like Final Fantasy 14 hotbar and maybe other MMOs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to say the advantages of like a lot of MMOs using that hotbar system and those custom keybinds is that no matter which MMO you go to, you can bring your little habits with you. Like for me, I always put all of my healing or defensive ones are always on like E, Shift E, Control E. I'm like one of those modifier kids who like gets 3 hotbars out of the same few keys.
Yeah.
I always if I have like a charge or a gap closure ability, that's going on F. It's always going on F for some reason. So there's that real advantage of no matter what MMO you're playing, as long as they use that system, it can feel nice and kind of homely and kind of like comfortable to go to. Whereas with action MMOs, you're like, right, how does dodging work here? What's the does this have iframes? Am I going to encounter lag? That sort of thing. But also just the joy of setting that up and tinkering with it and finding a good spot for everything. I play Ninja in Final Fantasy 14. That's like my main, and it has this really complicated system called mudras where you can mix 3 different abilities in like different combinations to get to about 6 or 7 other skills. And I've got that in a like vertical hotbar setup away from everything else, so I can like think of it like a fighting game combo and just go up and down the sliding scale. But yeah, I really like that sort of like element. And then, you know, with more action oriented games like Guild Wars 2, like you were saying, Lauren, you lose that element of customizability because there's not you don't have to manage screen space.
Yeah, I think the closest I've gotten to enjoying like a skill bar type experience recently was in Diablo 4. And again, what I'm complaining about is really skill bar combat generally, but I centered this conversation on MMOs because there are plenty of RPGs that don't just have skill bar combat. There are many options. This type of combat has a chokehold on MMOs though. Like there are not, I don't have a wealth of other options to try like combat wise in MMOs. So anyway, like a thing that's not really an MMO, but like I still maintain that Diablo feels like one in certain ways. Like there are ways in which it is not, but like anyway, Diablo 4, I did really enjoy the experience, and I think because it didn't have like a huge skill bar to work with of like figuring out my exact rotation on my rogue between like mouse buttons I wanted to use, what was going to be on my center click, because yeah, the like default setup of like 1 through 5 or whatever it is on that hotbar was like, that's not going to work. I need muscle memory. I need to put a lot of stuff on my mouse to really feel good about like the pace of this combat. And I was really happy with that. I did generally like it. And maybe I just need to have a reckoning with myself and work on getting my combat from other MMOs onto more of my mouse buttons and away from my keyboard. I think I'm just not very dexterous with like my keyboard hand and like doing the tab to target and like 1 through 5. And I think my fingers get lost even only dealing with 5 keys. I'm a poor silly person, and I just need to do more with my mouse potentially.
Do you have an MMO mouse, Lauren?
No, I have a SteelSeries mouse that has a meager 2 thumb buttons, and that's it. I don't think I could handle
that's my
a
setup.
big 10 key mouse.
That's my setup as well. But Molly, if do you use like a MMO mouse? Because I've heard about those things in there.
I do use an MMO mouse, and I genuinely think it like actually changed my outlook on MMO like hotbar combat. So I don't know if I can get this up to the camera for any of you who are watching rather than listening. Oh, I can. So I have an MMO mouse.
Look at you.
Yeah, this is the Razer Naga Trinity, and it is like my holy grail for MMO combat. It's one of those purchases that I made with such like apprehension and hesitation, because I was like, the moment I buy this mouse, I'm gonna stop playing MMOs. It's like, I am absolutely not. This is gonna be like a waste of £80. I think that's how much it cost me. It cost me £80 like 2 and a bit years ago. But it has like honestly changed my outlook on hotbar combat so much, because it adds so much convenience. Like
Yeah.
before, when I was kind of having to use my left hand to do everything, I was really struggling with it, right? I was finding it really difficult. And then as soon as all I have to do is I just like hold my hand like this and my thumb like barely even moves, right? To just hit the different keys. Oh my God, it changed my life. It actually like, I didn't know how much I needed it until I had it. And it's like, I still use some keys on my keyboard as like just a relic of that being how I used to play. Like I still use Q and E, and I still use like Z and X, I think, because I struggle to hit like the lower portion of the MMO mouse. So I mostly use it for like 1 to 6, and then everything else is on my keyboard. But because I think when I first tinkered around with hotbar combat, I was like, man, this is tiring. Like it's so tiring. I'm always moving my hand, and I was also getting lost, and I still kind of do get lost sometimes.
Just with your
I
hand
have
placement on your keyboard.
Yeah, like I main dancer in Final Fantasy 14, and I have a heal and a dash like right next to each other. And I've never ever gotten lost with those two before until a few days ago when I was trying to heal myself and I dashed straight off the arena like into the pit of death. But so that's why I think being able to take so much of that off and onto a mouse has been integral to my enjoyment of MMO hotbar combat. Maybe that's quite telling. That's what it took for me to enjoy it.
I appreciate the dexterity involved in putting all of that on your mouse, because I would be better with that generally, except then you mentioned like reaching for all those buttons, and I'm just imagining carpal tunnel 2 years from now setting in and being like, oh God, my MMO hand.
Yeah, we don't talk about like the state of my wrists and
I need to
my
start wearing
fingers.
braces.
Yeah, we don't talk about how that feels for me. But something else about Final Fantasy 14 specifically as well, which I don't know if you've ever dabbled with this, Harvey. So I started playing Final Fantasy 14 on a PS3 console, on a PlayStation 3, and something that Final Fantasy 14 has that you don't get anywhere else really is it has a hotbar specifically designed for controllers. So it's called the Cross Hotbar, and I also have a controller so I could demonstrate for our video viewers. So it makes use of the face buttons and the D-pad. So it makes use of both of those. That's where all your abilities end up on. And then you make use of the triggers and the shoulders to like cycle through different hotbars and like create new hotbars by using the triggers. And it is probably one of the like best put together hotbars I have ever seen. Like I know people who play on PC and they still use cross hotbar because it is like so well made. I don't know if you've ever used cross hotbar, Harvey. My friend who's a ninja main uses a controller to play.
I remember hearing someone who was a ninja main being like, I love using the cross hotbar because it makes those merger things that I mentioned earlier feel like a fighting game combo, right? No, I've never cracked into the controller options for Final Fantasy 14, but I have heard a lot of people do use them, and a lot of people do raid with them. For me, and this might be like some kind of weird accessibility thing that we stumbled onto, because I've never had problems like just using my keyboard. I'm also like a two button mouse peasant, but I also use like my keyboard, and I've never had a problem. But also, I'm a large man with big hands, and so like if I just like put my hand down onto my keyboard, it just like I have like about an inch of spare room with my fingers like hanging over the edge of it, so like I can get to everything.
So
I
you just reach all the number keys? What?
I can reach numbers one to 5. So like I never use numbers beyond like 5 and 6. What I do is I go like 1 to 5, Q, E, F, sometimes T if I'm feeling spicy, and then so that's
Teaser
like
reach.
about teaser reach. T's for things I don't use often. And then I do shift versions of all of those and control versions of all of those, and same with like my mouse buttons, and that usually gets me by. There are like 1 or 2 jobs on Final Fantasy 14 where they have slightly more than that, and it always messes me up. Like I have to like manually click my faint button for like reducing the amount of boss damage it does. Um, but I mean, what I really like about having that set up and about like learning it is that when you get to raiding, and I used this metaphor with like Molly earlier, it feels like trying to rub your stomach and pat your head, but in a very fun way where it's like, okay, I've got this really weird, complex rotation into my muscle memory. I can do it with my eyes closed, but I have to deal with limit cut and all of these numbers and all of these positions, and I have to think about where my character is, and I have to make sure I'm not dragging an AoE into the rest of these poor 7 people who I've bribed into doing super hard content with me. Um, so that experience is so satisfying.
Yeah, it's where the muscle memory comes into it as well, right? It's like if me and you were to swap hotbars, Harvey, like if I was to like use your dancer hotbar or something and you use my ninja hotbar setup, we would be so clueless, right? Because we know our rotations, but if I had to try and do my rotation on someone else's hotbar layout, like I think that would kill me off. And again, that's why I think I like it so much, because it's so personal. Whereas in Guild Wars, there's not much flexibility, right? It's like you can change which skills are on which numbers, but the skills that can go on the numbers are fixed, right? That's how it works in Guild Wars, if I remember.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. Like you can't just say, oh, I want my one ability to be on 9 for whatever reason. Like that one skill has to be on 1, right? It's like fixed.
Is that I think you can swap things around.
Can you swap?
Yeah. You can move things. There's not a lot to move. So like the things I really want, and this is maybe like an extension of like one of my end of year editorials from last year. I think it was last year when I wrote that like I'm still waiting for MMOs to be weirder. And that's still sort of the case. I'm still like I'm looking with hope towards like 2024. Like, do you guys remember that tweet that went around that was like, I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people who are paid more to work less? And I'm not kidding.
Yes.
Like, great sentiment, agree with that. But also, I want smaller MMOs with fewer skills and less people who are grinding less to enjoy more. And I'm not kidding. And I think that there are like some things that are not exactly MMOs that I talk about, like sort of adjacent to that space. Like Molly, you hear me bring up Red Dead Online all the time, which is not an MMO. There are like, I forget how many people per server in that, but it has a similar experience to the types of like interactions that you have, like the way it encourages like daily play and achievements and like job upgrades, like different unlocks. Like, yeah, it doesn't have raids as such, but it has like, anyway, not to get too deep into that. I acknowledge RDO is not an MMO, but I really enjoy it as something adjacent. Say what?
Has the tellings of one.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very adjacent to that space. And I love the different kinds of things you can do in Red Dead Online, like to interact with the world that are more than what you get in an MMORPG, where you have skills for combat, and then you have the E button to interact with every single other thing in the world. Everything else you do in the world, you press E to do it, unless it's combat, in which you have your hotbar. But in Red Dead Online, you have your different gun loadouts. You have like open world emergent PvP with other players. You can lasso people and haul them onto your shoulder and throw them on your horse and kidnap them. You can, what else? You can be like carrying around animals. There's just like, this is very old school of me, I feel like, to say like, I want more verbs. That is a very like, I think probably by now outdated concept in talking about game design, but I love the number of verbs in Red Dead Online. And I would love to see more like persistent online like community experience games that like have more weird ways of interacting. Not those aren't even weird, but like different ways of interacting that aren't just like hotbar and interact button, hotbar and do and pull the lever, talk to the person, pick up the item, the button that does every single other thing in the world. Yeah. Have you guys played any other things that fit that like adjacent mold, or even things that are MMOs but just like have a different kind of combat that doesn't center on like a skill bar?
It's a good question. I mean, I played a lot of GTA Online during lockdown, which
Right.
is kind of like the same thing, right? But what are heists if not a dungeon with a
Right.
different name, right?
Right.
Like
I want a GTA mod that does the FF14 like dungeon camera whenever
you
you
know,
enter
like
a bank. Just
move around, yeah. That would be amazing. So yeah, I played a lot of GTA Online during lockdown. I ran the casino heist like a ton of times because that was around when like peak lockdown was when like the casino heist was the thing that everyone was doing. I played, obviously I've spoken before about playing Toontown when I was a kid, which was an MMO but didn't have a hotbar. That was like turn-based combat, which when I was thinking about what I would want, I was like, oh, maybe an MMO with turn-based combat would be cool, forgetting that I literally that was like the first MMO. Yeah, like it exists, it existed. And yeah, that was very interesting as well, because you have like nothing really on your screen when you're navigating the world. Like you don't have a million different like HUD elements cluttering up your view, right? But then as soon as you go into a battle, that's when all your combat-y stuff kind of appears. It's just an RPG, like it's just a turn-based RPG, but other people can join as well.
I remember like Wizard 101 back in the day. Does RuneScape count? Does like classic RuneScape count as a MMO without traditional hotbar combat?
I forget
it would,
how RuneScape's combat works.
You basically just click on people, and then there's like a bit of inventory management, from what I remember. You got like prayers and stuff. It's been an age, but that's kind of the closest I got to. I always find that the issue with trying to like do other sort of mechanical things with MMOs in particular is you start hitting that issue of latency, right? I felt this when I was playing Diablo 4 as well. My internet's not bad or anything, but trying to get into the flow of that kind of like action combat, I always struggled whenever I got a lag spike or whenever I felt like the internet was getting in the way. And that's like an advantage of like the sort of like hotbar system, is that it's very forgiving for latency most of the time.
Yeah.
Especially because it comes from like an age of MMOs like EverQuest or whatever, where the everyone was running the internet off a potato, I assume, and dial-up was still a thing, and that kind of deal. So yeah, I don't know if I've played a lot of things that I would personally classify as MMOs that had that kind of feeling. I don't usually go in for those like big multiplayer online experiences unless it's like that, right?
Yeah, unless it's what you know. And that's part of the problem in asking for change in MMOs is like they have to survive, so they can't change. And I understand that that's part of like the devil's bargain that we have struck, is like you have to have a certain install base and player base to stay afloat, and so you don't mess with the you don't mess with the World of Warcraft formula. No one hardly does it. Like, case in point, the thing that I wanted to bring up next was Book of Travels, which I've talked about on this podcast before. Love it. It's made by the people that make the Shelter series. They made a thing that they call a tiny multiplayer online game, which has a server count of 7 people at a time. It is a gorgeous game. It is wonderful. It is not massive by definition. It's just a persistent shared world RPG game. And it has a skill bar as such, but your skills are not typically for combat. They're for like making specialties that give you buffs and like transforming or like summoning a lantern. Like, it's a very beautiful game and sweet. And then when it comes to combat, it's this sort of, it's like pseudo turn-based. Like, think of it a little bit like the early Final Fantasy. What's the acronym for like classic Final Fantasy combat? Either of you? I'm forgetting its name off the top of my head.
Is this like Final Fantasy 12? Was it
like an ATB kind of thing, like an active?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, like the ATB system, kind of, where you're like filling a meter, and the sooner you click it, the less your potential accuracy. The longer you wait, the more accurate this attack is about to be. But if your opponent clicks before you, they go before you. So it's this like, screwing with your brain type thing, even when you're like fighting NPCs. So there's not a lot of combat in that game, but it's again one of those things where like it's a different new kind of experience, and I really enjoy it, even though it's not necessarily massive.
I've just been mentally distracted because the moment I started talking about Final Fantasy XII, I've been thinking about how much I would love an MMO that was just used Final Fantasy XII's combat system. I want gambits. I want gambits in an MMO.
Just program everything beforehand, and then you all just go into a dungeon and walk away. You just go do whatever you want.
That sounds amazing. So seven people. We're getting away from the subject a little bit, but 7 people in a server at the time.
Yes, and it's you remember how Journey was, where you interact with people just like with little sounds and like emotes and whatever. That's how this one is. You have little emotes over your head, and it's up like these very just like emergent experiences of trying to like, emote at people to come with you and do your thing, because there's no party system as such either. You just have a buff when you're like near another person, and if 4 of you are near each other going off to do a little fight in a cave together, you'll have that like togetherness buff. But yeah, it's very tiny, and that's one of the things that I've been wanting more from massively multiplayer online games, is to be less massive, like, and to like do away with the Guild Wars obsession with like single shard, 1 million people doing a world boss encounter together. Because it was beautiful and incredible the first time I did it. Like the first time I did one of their giant open world, like raid adjacent type things. But now I'm like, I am an invisible thing in a crowd of 1 million explosions going off, and there's a boss nearby. And I'm like, it brings me no joy anymore. It brings me no joy. So I've been wanting to get away from like the massive aspect of an MMO, and just wanting the persistent world, shared space, but maybe fewer people at one time. Many people can be logged on. It can be massive in that format, but maybe fewer people to concern with like the server tech of having a shared space.
I get that.
So that we get like those different experiences.
Yeah, I get that. And like I was thinking, to go back like a little bit, I was thinking as well when you spoke about like latency, Harvey, and that kind of risk of when you sort of move away from more hotbar combat into stuff that requires more dexterity. Like when I think about MMOs that I played that kind of like derived from the hotbar formula, they're all sort of less dexterous in how they work, right? Like Toontown. Toontown is turn-based. Like that is, you have a timer, you make a decision, you can see other people's decisions, you have like a very short period of time to revoke your decision if someone else's decision doesn't like combine with yours. And then Puzzle Pirates, which is another MMO I brought up on our last MMO podcast, which was like, that was also an MMO where most of the sort of combat came from like your ship meeting someone else's ship, right? And then that would go into a puzzle. Like there wasn't really much dexterity that was required in the way of getting out of an AoE or hitting an attack or dodging something like with iframes. It was all like not more interesting. It was all different ways of doing things that didn't involve perhaps dexterity in a way that relied on latency. So like as soon as you said that, Harvey, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, there was a lot of different ways that people try to, I guess, like curb that a little bit.
There's on that point, and I was thinking about it into the lead up of this, and I was like, can I talk about your only move is hustle? Can I talk about a weird turn-based fighting game?
Yeah.
That's kind of hotbar-esque combat. It's like turn-based, but it has that same thing of, one of my favorite parts about that game is I am kind of like slightly into fighting games. Like I occasionally I go through like bouts of them, like I've been infected by some fever or whatever, where I will play a lot of a fighting game for a while and then stop and then play something else. But my issue with fighting games has always been having to learn that kind of manual dexterity and then putting the game down for a while and then coming back. Like it took me about I want to say 2 to 3 weeks of playing to like do a Dragon Punch input once. It's so difficult. But Your Only Move is Hustle. For those listening, if you haven't played it, it takes based on like a turn-based system, and instead of having like inputs, you basically have, to keep in topic, a hotbar of all of the things that your character can do, and then you can click it and it will show you a preview of what you're about to do. You can like see what would happen to your enemy if they were also doing things, and it becomes this game of chess. But a lot of like the footsies and the baiting and everything in fighting games is still preserved, right? So I feel like there is that thing of, if you start moving towards action-based things with more verbs, you are kind of weirdly putting a bit more of like a muscle memory kind of like load on the player in some cases. Like Final Fantasy 14, the rotations are at end game can get very complicated depending on the job that you're playing, but it is kind of like riding a bike very much, where if you go back into it and you do a couple of dungeons on your chosen job, you're back in, you're absolutely fine. So I wonder if you would lose that if you were going towards more action oriented, verb filled fun experiences.
Possibly. And like, are there any other combat systems that you guys have played that you wish could make it into an MMO type experience? Like Molly, you've talked about turn-based, and now Harvey, you've kind of talked about like fighting game adjacent stuff. Are there any other things that come to mind, like a particular game or genre or style that you're like, I wish that could work in persistent play?
I'm sure this has been done, and I'm trying to remember the name of the game that I think it used this Vindictus. I think it was called. It was like an action game that used the Source engine.
I did not play Vindictus, but yeah.
But like Dynasty Warrior style combat stuff, I think would work brilliantly in more MMO settings, and I'm surprised it's not more common, because there's some, you get into a lot of MMOs, so it's like it's less common nowadays. But I remember, if you played vanilla World of Warcraft, like classic World of Warcraft, now it's like, oh, I've pulled 2 enemies, I'm gonna die. I've gotten into the situation. But that kind of feel of clicking through a cloud. I've been thinking about City of Heroes as well, that is also very much hotbar based, but has that feeling when you get to end game and get a full build of being kind of like you're just blowing through entire 20 strong crowds of people.
Yeah.
Molly, what about you?
I was trying to think, because I did say turn-based, and then, like I said, remembered that Toontown existed, and worry if, like, in this day, if people would be okay with just kind of waiting around. But I like the sort of cooperation and strategy that's offered with like a multiplayer turn-based things. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing, but for my thing to work, I need you to do this thing. And then meanwhile, we're all low on health, so this person needs to do this thing, and then this other person could just kind of do whatever they want. This person could just do the thing that like meshes well with everyone else. So I like that. That was something that I liked about Toontown, is it does afford that level of like co-op, because when it comes to like your Final Fantasies and your WoW, the cooperation just comes from like, make sure that your like role composition is correct, right? Make sure that you've got the appropriate number of tanks, healers, and DPS. And in the case of Final Fantasy, it's just make sure that you're all doing your rotations correctly, so that your 2-minute burst, like after 2 minutes, your burst windows align with each other. Like that's the level of like cooperation a lot of the time. And then there's cooperation in mechanics. But I would really like to see another turn-based MMO. I don't know how well it would work. Maybe I'm asking for something that I would actually hate in realizing, like in reality. But I also kind of agree, like with Dynasty Warriors, like I would love to see like a big horde hack and slash kind of MMO. But I think I'd be really sad if I was like heading towards like a giant pack, and then someone like 20 levels above me just came out of nowhere and just blitzed through, just like wiped everybody out.
Counterpoint. Twice as many enemies as would be in a Dynasty Warrior game, but it's you and your mate in a battlefield just maybe technology's not there for it yet. But I was what you were saying, Molly, there about like that moment to moment like strategization and like slower paced MMOs. I watched Josh Strife Hayes did like he's a gaming YouTuber, if you haven't watched him, did like a deep dive into EverQuest, and he made like a super salient point, because EverQuest has a lot of sitting and resting and waiting for things to spawn, really long travel times. And he said that EverQuest was like developed at a time where the idea of like a chat room on the internet was like new and novel. So it's more like a chat room that also has a game that you can play in it, was kind of the design philosophy, which is why it took forever for your health and mana to regenerate, why it took forever, because you could stop and have those moments to chat to each other and talk to things and strategize. And that would kind of be fun to have in more MMOs. Is that feeling of like, yeah, it's that whole thing of like the meme in World of Warcraft or whatever, is when you get into a dungeon and you take 2 seconds to tank to like alt tab for a second, and the DPS immediately type go 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 into the party chat, and it's like, please, please relax. That kind of thing doesn't happen in Final Fantasy 14 as much, but there is still kind of that pressure of like, if you stop for too long, the healer's definitely going to go and throw a dot on some mobs to
bring them over, something. Which I may or may not have done.
Oh, I do that too. I'm
so impatient.
I am a whenever I play a healer, I'm just like, hey tank, if you don't pull as much as humanly possible, I'm not going to have fun, and I need you to know that.
Yeah, so please pull wall to wall. I'm begging you, and I'm here. Meanwhile, also begging for like a slightly slower, quieter MMO experience. I'm a gamer. Like, you'll never be able to win with me. That's just
those are the rules.
Yeah, those are the rules. What about you, Lauren? What's something that you would really want to see in like an MMO?
I'm like you, Molly, and then I'm kind of going to do that annoying thing where a person who's not on a development team, I'm going to say, wouldn't it be cool if, and then the thing I say after that is something that would be like impossibly expensive to pull off. But the thing that I've always really wanted is Souls-like combat in an MMO. And Harvey, I'm with you when I hear you on like the server tech involved in making that feel not horrible, but also pair that with my generalized request for smaller servers and when you're not handling as many players at a given time, because I love like, and not even just talking about the combat, but the general, like, clearly I enjoy non-text based player interactions, like the weird emergent things that happen when you take text away from people and suddenly they're kinder to each other. I love those experiences in MMOs. They're so weird, and Souls has that quality to it for sure. And it's multiplayer, and just generally I love Souls combat. I love lock on, I love dodging, I love parrying, even though I'm bad at it. I like having one light attack, one hard attack, but the beauty of the system is how you're capable of pairing those things together. Instead of having 10 separate skills, you have like 4 things you can do, and it's up to you to turn those into a wonderful dance of death and like success. I would love to see that in a like persistent world experience type thing, and knowing that it probably can't be massive in order to make it work. At least not massive in a combat zone. Maybe you can have lots of people together in outpost zones, but
not 100 people iframing, just like
no,
4 people,
absolutely not. No, I'm just like imagining the beauty of like exploring Elden Ring. Like, Molly's not a big Souls person, and I know you didn't do a lot of Elden Ring. Harvey, did you play Elden Ring at launch?
I want to say I played it at launch. I played it and beat it.
There was this fantastic feeling at the launch of Elden Ring that, again, it is not an MMO, even by the bastardized adjacent definition that I've been using during this conversation. It's not an MMO by any stretch, but there was this amazing quality to it of, in Elden Ring, even more so than other Souls games, you could see the shadows of people fighting nearby you in their own saves. You could like witness other people doing the things that you were doing near you. So like a smidge of that tech is already there, and it's already in the game of pulling people together like into like shards, instances, whatever, adjacent to one another. And I would love the like low-key interaction of stumbling upon like 5 other people in like Liurnia of the Lakes or wherever, and you like 4 of you decide to like clear a dungeon together in the manner that already exists in co-op, but in an emergent form of you were already sharing this space and you happen upon each other instead of having to connect via a bonfire or whatever.
As you were talking about those ghosts, I drew the most cursed connection I think I've ever drawn in my brain, which was like, what if it was like a gauntlet of Souls-like bosses, but like Fall Guys, and you had 30 other ghosts fighting the bosses at the same time with you, and you just got to watch as like a sweep comes in and like 20 other people fuck up their iframe positioning and just get like blasted off the side. That's not super related to my talk, but I want to see that. Yeah, I just think about also how busted the timing on every, like, I don't think I've played a Souls game where PvP has felt
Good.
like 1-to-1 accurate, or there's
Don't
always
let the Souls
some
PvP
weirdness.
people hear you say that.
It's good, but I think even the Souls PvP people will admit that it's just like, yes, you do get people who somehow backstab you or whatever. Also, it might be because I played Lords of the Fallen recently and it's extra broken in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that does sound like a lot of fun.
I do not know. It's like, obviously it's not a one-to-one comparison, but Monster Hunter is also a game that relies on sort of like accurate dodging and like sometimes iframing things. And then they tried to put that in Final Fantasy XIV. There is a Monster Hunter crossover in Final Fantasy XIV where you fight a Monster Hunter. Like there's a Monster Hunter like extreme trial, and that thing is so BS. Like it is so BS. It's like, oh, this like tail sweep is coming, and you're like nowhere near it. Like you're clear of it, and you're still getting knocked halfway across the arena because trying to put those mechanics into the Final Fantasy MMO mechanics just does not work. It's like oil and water, and they're just so like at odds with each other, which I think is very funny because it like has all of Monster Hunter's bullshit and then just amplifies it by putting Final Fantasy's bullshit in it as well. But when you say about Dark Souls, it has reminded me, I don't endorse or recommend Final Fantasy XIV plugins, but there is a plugin that lets you put down like Dark Souls style messages. Like you can like go and read them from other people. Again, I don't endorse or recommend it. It's against TOS, so if you do it, it's not on me. But but it is a thing.
But it exists.
It's a thing that exists and that I really want to try.
Those sorry, go ahead, Harvey.
I have a total friend of a friend who I've never talked to in my life. Please don't ban me, Square Enix. Who has that mod, and I can confirm that friend thinks that mod is very good.
But don't download it yourself, and if you do, it's not.
But don't do it. Don't do it. It's illegal.
You know what game I was has those actually, and I was thinking about it because Molly, I still haven't stopped playing it. I've been sucked back in. I'm still playing Sky Children of the Light on my Switch while we wait for it to arrive on PC. The game that is from the Journey developers, that is basically Journey, but like a tiny MMO. But it also has like a little messaging on the ground, like little things you can set up and leave messages for people, which is like super cute. And I'm surprised they went with text for it and not a more Souls like word bank type situation. I'm really shocked they went free like text entry for that. But yeah. Oh, the other thing, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge that Destiny 2 exists, and we have many Destiny 2 fans on this team. We just didn't invite any of them to this conversation. Don't say that to any of them. Destiny 2 exists. It's an FPS MMO, probably. It is much of an MMO as the other things I've been talking about. So. Right?
Molly's ready to punch through the screen.
I'm so ready.
About to vibe check everybody.
Next conversation about MMOs, we're going to invite Phil and just beat up Destiny.
I always think of like, where does the barrier between live service and MMO go as well, right? Because I would think of Destiny as like that's like a live service shooter kind of thing.
Is it also more instanced than I realize, Destiny?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Well,
Like the
yeah.
hub
There's like
is,
overall.
you know, you share the hub and you share some of the actual world itself, right?
Explorable
If you like
areas
go
too.
out and do something. But I remember I played Destiny 1 came out right after my Final Fantasy 14 brain rot had truly kicked off. So like I had played like a month of Final Fantasy 14 for hours on end every single day. And then I played Destiny expecting it to be an MMO and was like, this ain't a fucking MMO. This ain't an MMO. So but it has the tellings of one, I think, similar
Yeah.
to Red Dead and GTA and
Fair enough. I will say I consider the original Guild Wars to be an MMO, but it's about as much of an MMO as Path of Exile is, in that it has shared town areas where you meet with other people, but the combat zones are entirely individual instances for you and the party that you've brought along. So it's not, but it is in certain ways.
It's
So,
finding that line
We
again,
also
like Harvey said.
yeah.
Yeah, and we also talk about like Final Fantasy 14 is obviously an MMO, but arguably, especially now that a lot of it's more soloable, you could make the argument, well, it's more of a single player RPG in a big shared world, right? If you wanted to make that argument, like very, very few people are going through the main story quest of that game, which is kind of the bulk of the experience, unless you're really into end game raiding. Kind of on their own, they're like sharing it with other people, but it's you know, like a communal single player RPG in a lot of aspects. So like you can make that argument for or against any game being an MMO or not, depending on.
Elder Scrolls Online is that way too. It's very soloable, and I would say I play it in a very solo way. But like, even like, regardless of what your personal play style is, you're dealing with a like completely persistent and shared world space. Like, regardless of who happens to be online or whether or not you're someone who likes to solo in an online game, they are like, I don't know. Yeah, like it's like I want a new acronym that encompasses things that are not massive. Like I'm tired of calling them MMOs because I want small MMOs, but that is like antithetical to the definition of what it is. So I want a new thing that's like, but like persistent shared space, PSS games. No one's going to start saying that. So,
Piss games. Let's do it.
Piss
Piss gamers. That's us.
We are the best piss gamers. What a wonderful
PC
way.
gamers, piss gamers.
What a wonderful way to bring this towards a close.
Yes, absolutely. That is my request, that we all become piss gamers sometime in the future.
Piss gamers unite.
Yeah. So yeah, that is sorry, I don't know if you can hear the routine tornado sirens in the background.
Oh no!
Time of the...
I actually can't.
No. It's testing.
Oh, routine.
It's
okay,
exactly
routine. No, I just thought I said piss gamers unite, and you were like, okay, that's it.
No, I'm getting at.
I say piss gamers unite, and the tornado sirens are just like, oh no.
Lauren is desperately searching for her extremely loud incorrect buzzer as we speak. Where is it? Where the fuck is it?
So we brought Harvey in to talk about like hotbar style combat, and I think what we've come out with is you guys both are really attached to it, and
Yeah.
I understand why it's not going to change, because change is like glacier paced in the MMO space, but we can all imagine a beautiful world with more options, where there's interesting, neat, weird combat in persistent shared space PSS games that may or may not be massive depending on your taste. Yeah, thanks for imagining with me, basically just like asking for things that don't exist. That's basically what we did today, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine your card battler roguelike Dynasty Warriors / gardening sim MMO, and there's nothing these big game studios can do to stop you.
Leave us alone. We do have a farm sim MMO now. It does exist. It's in early access. We didn't talk about Palia at all because combat like isn't really a thing. But yeah, that's also a thing we have now. Anyway, thank you both for being here and allowing me to just be wrong and also just ask for imaginary things.
Yay!
We did it. Bye, guys.
Bye.